Bank approves release of $880 million for Ukraine. Delhi Chief Minister arrested over graft probe. Good afternoon, Salam Malaysia Madani. You're watching World Today with me, SAHIH. The International Monetary Fund's Executive Board confirmed it will disburse $880 million to Ukraine in the third phase of a $15.6 billion aid package to support the country's war-torn economy. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said Russia's invasion of Ukraine continues to bring enormous social and economic costs to Ukraine. However, she said macroeconomic and financial stability has been preserved, reflecting skillful policymaking by the Ukrainian authorities as well as substantial external support. The board's approval comes around a month after an IMF staff visit to Ukraine found that the authorities had met most of the necessary criteria to release the money, aside from a small miss on tax revenue due to border blockages. More than 2 years since the Russian invasion began, Ukraine still faces near-daily aerial bombardments of its major cities, while the grueling ground war continues in the east of the country. Despite this, the IMF said Ukraine's economy proved to be more resilient than expected last year, with robust growth outturns, continued sharp disinflation, and the maintenance of adequate reserves. However, headwinds are re-emerging this year, with growth expected to soften to 3 to 4% due to uncertainty about the ongoing war. Russia fired more than 30 missiles at Kiev early Thursday, the largest attack on the Ukrainian capital in weeks after Russian President Vladimir Putin vowed retribution for strikes and incursions into Russia's border regions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called on the West to deliver air defense systems after the attacks, which wounded 17 in Kiev and the surrounding region. According to the head of the Kiev City Military Administration, Sergei Popko, it was the first missile strike on the Ukrainian capital since early February. Russia's defense ministry said that it had targeted Ukrainian military sites with long-range, high-precision weapons, including Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. Ukraine's emergency services agency said a later missile strike on the southern city of Mykolaiv killed 1 woman and injured 6 when it hit an industrial site. The country's air force, meanwhile, said it shot down 31 Russian missiles fired towards Kiev. Ukraine's military intelligence unit said the missiles had been targeted at its facilities in the capital. The attacks come after a sharp escalation in Ukrainian strikes on Russian border regions and oil refineries over the last 2 weeks. Russia began the mass production of FAB-3000 high-explosive aerial bombs from February of this year. The Russian Defense Ministry reported an allegedly large increase in the production of other FAB-500 and a doubling of FAB-1500 bombs production. Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu inspected an industrial plant in Nizhny Novgorod region, which manufactures FAB-3000 bombs and other types of ammunition, including artillery rounds. The FAB-3000 is a high-explosive bomb that weighs 3 tons and is more than 3 meters long, with an explosive weight of 1.4 tons. It is also equipped with 3 fuses at once. Shoigu said that the output of ammunition for artillery increased almost 22 times. He added that this increase ensured delivery of sufficient amount of projectiles to the zone of the special military operation in Ukraine. The only carriers of this bomb in the arsenal of the Russian aerospace forces are Tu-22 M3 strategic bombers. The bomber can carry up to 2 such bombs in its internal compartments. The Russians have already used this bomb in a previous mission to target the Azovstal meteorological facility during the defense of Mariupol. EU leaders have agreed to open talks with Bosnia on joining the bloc, though negotiations will only begin in earnest once the Balkan country has passed more key reforms.
Nous avons pris la décision d'ouvrir les négociations avec la Bosnie-Herzégovine. C'est une étape clé, importante.
Bosnia has been an official candidate for membership since 2022, but needed to implement a string of reforms before getting the green light on progressing to the next stage. Brussels last week said the country had completed some of the steps required, but outstanding judicial and electoral reforms remain. Russia's war on Ukraine has reinvigorated the EU's drive to enlarge in Eastern and Central Europe, with its current member states agreeing in December to start talks on joining with Ukraine and Moldova. The drive for new members is part of an effort to push back against Russian and Chinese influence in the EU's backyard. Launching negotiations only puts Bosnia at the start of a long process of further painstaking reforms that usually last for many years before a country finally joins the EU. British Foreign Secretary David Cameron, Defence Secretary Grant Shapps, Australian Defence Minister Richard Marles and Foreign Minister Penny Wong toured the Osborne Naval Shipyard in Adelaide, Australia after they signed a new defence and security agreement. The treaty signed on Thursday requires the two nations to consult each other if they come under threat. Under the AUKUS agreement, a security pact between Australia, Britain and the United States launched in 2021, Australia also named BAE, Britain's biggest defence company, to build nuclear submarines in partnership with Australia-based naval firm ASC. Under AUKUS, Australia will buy several US Virginia-class submarines in the next decade and build a new AUKUS nuclear-powered submarine at Adelaide Shipyard by 2040. Australia is boosting defence interoperability and military exercises with the United States and regional partners. This came after a defence review last year said China was undertaking the largest military build-up of any country since the end of World War II. Leaders from pro-nuclear European countries and energy experts are set to call for a nuclear energy revival at a summit in Brussels. The meeting is seeking to rebuild the European industry after years of gradual decline. The political push to expand nuclear, a low-carbon energy source, is part of the drive to meet Europe's ambitious climate targets. However, it faces headwinds including a lack of investment and cost overruns and delays that have plagued recent projects. The need to find alternatives to Russian gas following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 and the European Union's commitment to cut net greenhouse gas emission 55% by 2030 has renewed interest in nuclear power. Despite this, EU countries remain divided on whether to promote nuclear energy, with two entrenched camps. One side is led by France that believes nuclear expansion is crucial, and the other, including anti-nuclear countries, Australia and Germany, want the focus to stay on renewable sources such as wind and solar. More aid landed in Gaza by aircraft on Thursday as Washington launched a new diplomatic push for a ceasefire deal that would free hostages and bring in food aid to ward off famine in the Palestinian enclave. According to the United Nations, 5 months of war have created critical food shortages among Gaza's 2.3 million Palestinians that in some areas now exceed famine levels. United States Secretary Antony Blinken met Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi in Cairo on Thursday as part of talks with Arab officials to seek a ceasefire in Gaza. This came after Israeli Prime Minister told US Republicans there would be no let-up in the war against Hamas. In Gaza itself, Israel's offensive focused on the Al-Shifa hospital, where the military said it was continuing its precise operational activity to locate weapons and fight Hamas fighters hiding in the compound. Israel said its troops had killed more than 50 Hamas men over the previous day, taking the number of fighters killed around the hospital to 140. Near Al-Shifa, the army had blown up houses close by as buildings in the hospital complex burned. UN adopts first global AI resolution, that and more coming out after this short break. Welcome back. A top politician in India's capital, New Delhi, was arrested in a graft probe his supporters say is aimed at sidelining opponents to Prime Minister Narendra Modi ahead of national elections. Arvind Kejriwal, Delhi's chief minister and a key leader in an opposition alliance challenging Modi in next month's polls, was detained after several hours of questioning by the Enforcement Directorate, India's main financial crimes agency. Kejriwal's government has been accused of corruption in the allocation of private liquor licenses, and a probe in the matter has already seen two of his top allies jailed. Delhi Education Minister Atishi Marlena Singh confirmed the arrest and said Kejriwal remained the state chief minister. She described his arrest as a political conspiracy orchestrated by Modi's ruling Berita Janata Party. Kejriwal, who has been chief minister for nearly a decade and first came to office as a staunch anti-corruption crusader, had resisted multiple summons from the Enforcement Directorate to be interrogated as part of the probe. He's among several prominent opposition leaders subject to criminal investigation that supporters say are aimed at hobbling opponents at the Bharatiya Janata Party. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said on Thursday that a long-term bailout from the International Monetary Fund (IMF) was inevitable given the South Asian country's broken economy. The comments came a day after the IMF agreed a provisional or staff-level agreement with Islamabad which, if approved by its board, would disburse the last tranche of $1.1 billion under an existing $3 billion standby arrangement. Shehbaz said he hoped to receive the amount next month. With a long-term 2 to 3 year in IMF program, the Pakistani economy that has long been under extreme stress with a yawning balance of payment crisis would need deep-rooted structural reforms. The standby arrangement expires on 11th April. The lender has already said it would formulate a medium-term program if Islamabad applies for it. The government has no officially stated the size of the additional funding it is seeking under the long-term bailout. However, it has been reported in February that Pakistan planned to ask for a loan of at least $6 billion. Canada, for the first time, is planning to curb the number of temporary foreign workers it welcomes after years of lofty immigration levels. Ottawa is proposing to reduce the number of temporary residents to 5% of the population over the next 3 years, down from the current 6.2%, which is equivalent to 2.5 million people. That target will be firm after consultations with Canada provinces, some of which have been pushing back on large migrant inflows amid a housing crunch and soaring demands for services. Restrictions on temporary foreign workers permits will start on 1st May. This follows a recently announced cap on new permits for international students and visa requirements for some Mexican travellers. Immigration Minister Mark Miller said Canada has seen a sharp increase in the volume of temporary residents in recent years, from a rise of international students to more foreign workers filling job vacancies to those fleeing wars and natural disasters. However, Canada's labour market is now much tighter, with its population growth fueled by massive immigration outpacing job creation. The United Nations General Assembly has unanimously adopted the first global resolution on artificial intelligence to encourage countries to safeguard human rights, protect personal data, and monitor AI for risks. The non-binding resolution proposed by the United States and co-sponsored by China and 122 other nations took 3 months to negotiate and also advocates for strengthening privacy policies.
Today, all 193 members of the United Nations General Assembly have spoken in one voice and together chosen to govern artificial intelligence rather than let it govern us. The groundbreaking resolution adopted today cements global consensus for safe, secure, trustworthy AI systems that both advance sustainable development and respect fundamental freedoms.
The resolution is the latest in a series of initiatives by governments around the world to shape AI's development amid fears it could be used to disrupt democratic processes, turbocharge fraud, or lead to dramatic job losses, among other harms. In November, the US, Britain and more than a dozen other countries unveiled the first detailed international agreement on how to keep artificial intelligence safe from rogue actors, pushing for companies to create AI systems that are secure by design. Lawmakers in Venezuela, allied with the government of President Nicolas Maduro, approved the creation of a new state in a territory that is the subject of a long dispute with neighboring Guyana, despite an ongoing international court case. The approval is in line with recent rhetoric from Maduro about his country's supposed right to govern the Essequibo region, but will have no immediate practical effect. The International Court of Justice (ICJ) will decide on which country the territory belongs to. However, the Venezuelan government has said it does not recognize the ICJ and that it has a right to control Essequibo and allow oil exploration there. Guyana has said its borders are not up for discussion and that it will defend its sovereignty. The law approving the new state, called Guyana Essequibo, will come into force as soon as it is published in the official gazette. The state's borders would be the Atlantic Ocean to the north, Brazil to the south, Guyana to the east, and the Venezuelan states of Delta Amacuro and Bolivar to the west, according to the law. Venezuela has in recent years revived its claim to the territory and to offshore areas after major oil and gas discoveries and amid internal political upheaval ahead of elections expected this year. The US Department of Justice sued Apple, accusing the tech giant of illegally maintaining a monopoly for its iPhone by stifling competition and imposing exorbitant costs on consumers. The lawsuit, also brought by multiple US states, said Apple raked in hundreds of billions of dollars by allegedly making it difficult for consumers to switch to cheaper smartphones and devices.
Consumers should not have to pay higher prices because companies break the law. We allege that Apple has employed a strategy that relies on exclusionary, anti-competitive conduct that hurts both consumers and developers.
The long-anticipated case against Apple sees the company, founded by Steve Jobs in 1976, clash with Washington after largely escaping US government scrutiny for nearly a half-century. It joins Amazon, Google and Facebook owner Meta, which are also facing antitrust lawsuits in the United States. At the heart of the case is Apple's alleged exclusionary practices that set strict and at times opaque conditions on firms and developers seeking to reach the iPhone's 136 million US users. According to the lawsuit, these rules and decisions have been designed to force Apple users into staying in the Apple ecosystem and buying the iPhone. Next in sports, Harimau Malaya vow revenge after defeat at Muscat. Stay tuned. Malaysia suffered their first loss in Group D of their 2026 World Cup, 2027 Asian Cup qualifiers after going down 0-2 to Oman at the Sultan Qaboos Sports Complex in Muscat this morning. The loss saw Malaysia playing under the tutelage of South Korean coach Kim Pan-gon and leading Group D, relegated to third spot in the group on goal difference but level on 6 points with leaders Oman and Kyrgyzstan. 2 goals scored in the second half by Oman, ranked 80th in the FIFA World Ranking through Issam Al-Sabi and Muhsin Al-Ghassani in the 58 and 88 minutes. Courtesy of 2 lapses in concentration by the defence was enough to see the hosts walk out with 3 points. Oman, under newly appointed coach Juroslav Shilhavi, dominated the proceedings right from the start, but despite creating several goal-scoring opportunities, Juroslav Boy failed to beat Ahmad Shihan Hazmi Mohamad in goal. Malaysia will, however, have an opportunity to avenge this morning's defeat when hosting Oman at the National Stadium in Bukit Jalil on 26 March, which will be the 4th match for both teams in Group D. Meanwhile, in another Group D match, Kyrgyzstan continued their winning momentum by beating Taiwan 2-0 in Kaohsiung, Taiwan. Arsenal star boy Bukayo Saka has pulled out of the England squad for their forthcoming friendlies against Brazil and Belgium. Saka has established himself as a key figure in Gareth Southgate's England team, but he will miss the Euro 2024 warm-up matches due to an unspecified injury. The games against Brazil at Wembley on Saturday and Belgium at the same venue next Tuesday are England's last outings before Southgate announces his Euro squad in May. Saka's withdrawal comes as Arsenal prepare for a dramatic end to the season. The Gunners sit top of the Premier League and face a Champions League quarter-final clash with Bayern Munich. The Arsenal forward reported to St George Park with an injury and has been unable to participate in training. The English FA in a statement said that no further replacements are planned as a 25-man England squad continue their preparation for the forthcoming international with Brazil and Belgium. Prior to leaving the squad, Saka had been working indoors on an individual program along with Harry Kane, Cole Palmer and Jordan Henderson. Leicester City could face a point deduction after the Premier League referred them to an independent commission on Thursday over alleged breaches in the league's spending rules. The Premier League said in a statement that Leicester, who were relegated to the Championship last season, had failed to submit their audited financial accounts. According to the statement, the alleged breach relates to the assessment period ending season 2022-2023 when the club was a member of the Premier League. It said the proceedings will be conducted in accordance with a timetable to be set by the independent commission. If found guilty, Leicester could become the third club to face a point deduction for breaching Premier League spending rules after Everton and Nottingham Forest. Defending champions Manchester City were also referred to an independent commission last year over more than 100 alleged breaches of finance rules. No verdict has yet been reached in that case. Leicester are second in the Championship, equal on points with leaders Leeds United as they pursue promotion back to the Premier League. Convicted rapist and former Brazil international Dani Alves will spend another night in jail after failing to raise the €1 million bail set by a Barcelona court to ensure his release pending appeal. Wednesday's surprise decision by the court caught prosecutors off guard as the disgraced footballer had routinely been refused bail since his arrest in January 2023 on ground he was a high-flight risk. One of the world's most decorated footballers, Alves, 40, was convicted last month of raping a young woman in the VIP bathroom of a Barcelona nightclub in the early hours of 31st December 2022. The Barcelona court approved the request in exchange for posting bail of €1 million, handing over his Spanish and Brazilian passport, remaining in the country and presenting himself to court on a weekly basis. The court's decision to grant him bail was angrily denounced by the victim's lawyer as justice for the rich. But by 2 p.m. yesterday, the daily cut-off time for presenting the funds, Alves' representative had not transferred the money, meaning he would spend at least another night in jail. Marijn van den Berg emerged triumphant from a bunch sprint finale to snatch stage 4 of the Tour of Catalonia yesterday. Two-time Tour de France winner Tadej Pogačar remains the race leader and firm favourite after flexing his muscles with sensational stage 2 and 3 wins. EF Education EC post rider Van den Berg prevailed in a blistering finish to the 169-kilometre run from Sot to Liège to score his second World Tour victory. The 24-year-old Dutchman, who was concussed in a crash in February, edged out second place Annette Marit and Emil Lipin's third. Stage 5 today takes riders 167.5 km from Altafulla to Valladecans and does not feature any notably difficult climbs. Slovenian star Pogačar, 2 minutes and 27 seconds ahead of his closest challenger Mikel Landa, could effectively seal his victory on Saturday with a 6-kilometre climb to a mountain sanctuary at an average gradient of 7.2%. The UAE team Emirates rider is aiming for an ambitious Giro Tour double in 2024, with Marco Pantani the last to win both in 1998. Over in Africa, close finishes were the theme of the day in punishing temperatures as the race for the leader's jersey also heated up during stage 4 of Cape Epic on Thursday. With conditions above 35 degrees Celsius, the route was reduced from 88 kilometers to 73 kilometers, with around 400 meters of climbing also shaved off the Queen stage. Nino Schroeter and Sebastian Finney of World Bicycle Relief used every last drop of energy to beat Matthew Beers and Howard Grotz from Toyota Specialized 91 in a sprint finish. In the overall lead at the start of the day, Hans Becking and Wood Elman Baf Magamo suffered on the challenging stage, finishing 6th to hand the yellow jersey over to Beers and Grotz, who now have a 2-minute gap over World Bicycle Relief. And Terpstra and Nicole Collar, Ghost Factory Racing, continued to dominate the women's race, beating Sofia Gomez Villafane and Samara Shapit, Toyota Specialized 91, to the line for their 5th win out of 5. The orange jersey holders have a 2.5-minute lead over a Mona Mitterwalder and Candice Lille, Cannondale Factory Racing, with 3 stages remaining.
Mental ni Jid, antara salah satu perkara yang penting bila ada kejohanan ataupun atlet ketika dalam gelanggang kan. Tapi bila dia berdepan dengan situasi perang psikologi, macam-macam cara untuk nak mengatasi kita kan.
Tapi kita nak tahu juga dekat Malaysia ni macam mana untuk latihan mental dan juga fizikal, psikologi atlet ni diberikan. Cara-caranya lah. Kita akan bincangkan dalam Pendek Sukan TV1 dan juga Sukan RTM semestinya pukul 10 malam hanya untuk.
Hai, saya Syah.
Saya Hanura.
Kami akan kongsikan cara mendaftar padu. Jom ikuti langkah ini.
Langkah pertama, isi maklumat asas seperti nama penuh, nombor kad pengenalan, poskod, nombor telefon dan email. Langkah kedua, masukkan kod one time password OTP yang telah diterima melalui SMS atau email yang telah didaftarkan. Langkah ketiga, di bahagian ini anda perlu tetapkan kata laluan mengikut kriteria yang telah ditetapkan.
Jangan lupa anda perlu membuat pengesahan identiti. Langkah pertama, ambil gambar MyCard bahagian hadapan. Langkah kedua, ambil gambar MyCard bahagian belakang. Langkah ketiga, ambil gambar swafoto atau selfie pemilik MyCard. Sila tunggu sekejap dan sekiranya keluar paparan ini, pengesahan identiti anda telah berjaya.
Jangan lupa ya, kita kena kemas kini, okey? Di bahagian ini, anda perlu kemas kini maklumat asas, alamat kediaman, maklumat pendidikan, maklumat isi rumah, pekerjaan, pendapatan, komitmen dan bantuan. Sebelum membuat perakuan, pastikan butiran yang diperlukan diisi dengan lengkap.
Tahniah, anda telah berjaya mendaftar akaun padu.
Awak tu dah daftar ke belum?
Nak pergi daftar lah ni.
That ends our bulletin today. Wrapping up with a recap of our top story. World Bank approves release of $880 million for Ukraine. Tune in to Malaysia Tonight, coming up at 8:30 p.m. on TV1 and saluran Berita RTM. From river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I'm SAHIH. Stay tuned to TV2.